and the sin that so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, notice, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despised the shame, and sat down at the right hand of God. Why did Jesus give ultimate sacrifice? Because it gave him joy. It gave him joy. Well, I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration to say he had a smile on his face. But it gives us a good image to think of Jesus going to the cross with a smile on his face. Maybe it didn't show, probably didn't, but certainly the smile was in his heart. When you think about service, joy has to come to mind because that's what it says about Jesus. And so for a few minutes, we're going to think about Jesus, the servant, with a smile. Now, I have an image that I want to give you that maybe will help you recall the lesson, okay? You know, a towel has an interesting place in our society. It has a place in our society because it is an image that brings things to our minds. So, for instance, it is a demonstrative image. Now, those of us who are sports fans, what was his name? John, that coached Georgetown's basketball team. John Thompson. All the time, right? How about UNLV? Remember that guy? He would keep, I know I've lost you ladies, I'm sorry. Some of you. He would keep towels wet next to him, and all during the game, the coach, he would chew on it. And so when I see a towel, I see one draped over somebody, and I think of John Thompson because it just was used to demonstrate something. But I would also say that towels are not just demonstrative, they are decorative. I wonder if your house is like mine. I went to the hall bathroom one time. My wife went in later and she said, "Those towels in there, were you using them?" And I said, "Well, yeah, they were hanging there. I needed one." "They're not to be used." I said, "What?" "It's a decoration." Give me a break. The towel, I have wet hands, and the towel is hanging there. What do you want me to do? It's a decoration. I don't get it. Doesn't make sense to me. But makes sense to her. The towel. But you're going to leave here tonight not with a demonstrative show of nervousness like those coaches. And we're not going to leave it as a decoration on a wall. You're going to leave here tonight with the image of a towel as the definition of service. I'll leave it here. If it falls, Virgil, it's up to you to get it. All right. John 13. The text that was read. I want to begin by letting Jesus define service. We think about service, we think about all kinds of different things. And service is a very general term, and it could include any number of things. So I'm not talking about specific ways in which to serve. I'm talking about how Jesus defines the word service. In other words, without these things, whatever it is you're doing may not be service the way Jesus defines it. Number one, verse 1. Jesus, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Service, real service, is rooted in love. Dad says, take out the trash. Nothing happens. Take out the trash. Nothing happens. Take out the trash. Okay. Yep. Was it out of love? I don't think so. Unless it was love for himself not getting beat. That's about all. That's the only little love it would be there, right? Jesus, the servant that you know about in this text, and that described his entire ministry, was a service rooted in love. Not just responsibility without his compassion. It's just love. Now, do you want a definition for love? Love's hard to define, isn't it? Love, because what do you say? Well, let me help you. I do this in my premarital stuff with couples or with college students or whatever, and I like this definition, which is a negative definition of love, okay? Here it is. See if you can pick it up. Love is not the feeling you feel when you feel a feeling you never felt before. Got it? Okay, say it back. Oh, okay, I'll go slowly. Ready? Love is not a feeling that you feel when you feel a feeling you never felt before. That could be gas. In fact, we talked about the importance of informing our emotions. Love is a commitment. Love says, I choose to. I know that because God told the Jews, you love me. You can't force somebody's emotions, but you can inform them of what you expect, and that information will get to their emotions if they will comply. When you say, I love you, I choose to love you. You are informing yourself of the commitment you have made, and over time, if necessary, it'll get to my emotions because I said, I love you. Love is the undergirding point of all service that Jesus did. Number 2. Jesus, let's see, verse, 4. He rose from supper. Real service can be done anywhere you happen to be at any time. He didn't wait for some big public event. He didn't think that there was another opportunity better than this one. Wherever he was at the moment, that's where he served. And he says that real service, by his example to us, defining real service, he is saying, wherever you are, you can serve. Doesn't matter. Now, you can serve in this church, in this place. It doesn't matter if there are not 500 people here. You can serve in this church. So Jesus is saying real service happens wherever you happen to be. Number 3, he laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. Real service is personal. Now, I'm not going to disparage or denigrate the kind of service that says, well, as a church, get money over there to help those people in flood times. That's a good thing to do. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I am willing to say, if the only service you are ever involved in for the Lord is the group service of what the church chooses to do, then you're not doing what real service is all about. Real service is personal. Remember, it's wherever you are. Guess what? The church is never everywhere that you are. It's never everywhere that I am. And so if I'm not personally involved, then there are places where the church won't be involved in service. It's personal. I need to take it personally. Verse 5. When he took that water and he started to wash the feet. Sometimes service is menial and even disgusting. I love my in-laws. I got great in-laws. They live across the street. But they're in a bad place right now. And we've had to do some disgusting things. But you do it. Why? Because I made a commitment to love them, right? And because they're right there. Church isn't right there. I'm right there. And I had to do it personally. I'm not going to pawn it off on somebody else. When these people walked around all the time on those dusty roads, they didn't have socks. They didn't even wear socks. Now, I wonder if socks have really hurt us. You know, socks just hold the stink in. At least if you got sandals on, you're able to breathe them a little bit. but I guarantee you they're dirty. Now, some people don't like feet. Don't touch my feet. I'm not touching yours, people say. Jesus said, I'll do it. You know what's interesting about this event? The custom of the day was that every host had a bowl of water and a towel for a guest to clean off his feet. Now remember this. Jesus had sent, we don't know who, I don't think, disciples ahead of him to prepare for this meal they're about to eat. You remember the story, right? He sent them ahead, and they prepared everything, didn't they? They had food to eat. They had what Jesus was going to use as the Lord's Supper beginning. And guess what they had? They had a bowl of water, and they had a towel. They prepared. But everybody is sitting around, and nobody did anything. They prepared for somebody to do it, but whoever went ahead, whichever of the disciples he sent ahead to get the room ready, they never thought, oh, that's going to be my job. I have to clean their feet. Interesting. That's almost back to the personal thing. If you're willing to save yourself some disgusting things and paying somebody else to do it every single time, maybe we need to rethink it. So Jesus did what was menial, because that's what happens. Real service creates a challenge to comfort zone. He came to Peter, and Peter said, wait, Lord, are you washing my feet? I think he had the same attitude that John the Baptist had. When Jesus came to John and says, you're going to baptize me. Whoa, wait a minute. I need you to baptize me. It was out of deep respect for who Jesus was. And he said, no. I'm not worthy. You baptize me. He said, oh, no. It's been prophesied. This is how it has to be. Okay, I'm good. And I think Peter really had this mentality. No. You ever been uncomfortable in service? Now I'm talking about uncomfortable being a servant. I'm talking about, have you ever been uncomfortable being served? I have been a Christian for 32 years, and in that time period, not working. Okay? Not working. But, yeah, she was nice. Try. It's on there, but it keeps going off for some reason. What's that mean?
You're number one.
I'm number one. Okay. I agree. Totally. I don't know how it could. Tell you what I'll do. I'll put her down here then, just to make sure. Or I'll have you stand right here and hold it. All right, let's try this. Is that better? There you go. If it goes off again, we'll do something different. Okay. I've spent many hours, many of them with Shelby Roy, working on other people's stuff. I mean, I've put roofs on, done porches, trees. The Eubanks during that storm had trees fell on their house. We went down there and spent all day getting those trees off their house. I mean, I've done that for years because, number one, I enjoy it. Number two, that's just what Christians do. One day, I had been working on my roof. The shingles are really bad, and on the back side of my roof, I had been working on it and patching it and doing all kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, a group of men showed up, and they're going to fix it. And I said, "Oh, no, you're not. My roof." And they said, oh, yeah, we are, because your wife called us. And she said she doesn't want the front of the roof, the shingle line, to look like the shingle line you created on the backside. I get that. I get it. But I would rather spend a week working on somebody else's house than letting people work on my house for a day. It's uncomfortable. But we have to allow people, as they say, their blessing. Right? On again. That'll be fine. If you need to hold it, that's good. Man. So, I don't know what's going on, but all right. Is that what it is? Shelling the corn, burning it up. So, we are people who sometimes are in uncomfortable situations. In fact, oftentimes real service is going outside your comfort zone. Didn't Jesus say it's easy to love those who love you, hard to love others that don't really love you? It's getting outside the comfort zone. It's a little tough. We are people who need to learn what service is all about, and Jesus tells us. Finally, look at verse 7. When I say finally, I mean finally for point 1, not finally for the whole sermon. Just let you know. Jesus said, "You do not understand now what I'm doing, but you will." Real service does not demand immediate satisfaction. It doesn't demand immediate accomplishment of a mission. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, real service accomplishes whatever it's going to do down the road. I'll tell you an interesting story. I think it's interesting. I've always started saying that. Charles Coy was one of the members there. He was a lawyer when I first moved to Richmond, and I was preaching, and I would often say, "I'm going to tell you an interesting story." And he called me aside, and he goes, "You know what? It's not interesting to me. Not every story is interesting to me." So I said, "Oh, I get it. So I should say, it's interesting to me." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, great. No problem." So that's what I do from now on. So now I say, I have an interesting story. At least to me, it is. When they had those floods down in the Shelby Valley area, down in eastern Kentucky, Barry Todd found a house through the preacher down there that we could work on. And so we're there. And I mean, this house was a mess. It had totally had to be taken down. All the inside, we put it all back up, painted, I mean, everything. About halfway through the process, we start figuring out, well, we knew who it was. We started figuring out connections. Let me tell you who it was. It was the father of Brandy. Her dad, it was his house. Amazing, isn't it? I didn't know that. Jameson, they had been with us back then, members at Richmond, but all these years later, we show up to fix a house, and it turns out to be her father's house. I had no idea. They're not going to church anywhere. But our service, fixing his house, we did not expect that the following Sunday he'd be in church. But I do expect that, number one, we did our service. And number two, over time, maybe he will. Thinking back on Christian people who helped. Isn't that cool? Okay. So, let's get to the towel. If the towel represents service, and we are people who have done well at times, failed at times in service, I want to give you 3 ideas about a towel. And you take these with you as it relates to service. Here are 3 options. As children of God, learning from Jesus, we can throw in the towel like Judas did when he killed himself. Now, if you've watched any boxing at all, you know that there may come a time when the corner will pick up a towel and throw it into the ring. Why? I quit. It's over. We give up. We've been beaten. Stop the fight. That's what it means when you say, throw in the towel. Judas Iscariot quit. He threw in the towel. Now, he had been given every opportunity. He had been given all the training he needed to do what he needed to do because he was one of the chosen 12. Matthew chapter 10, verse 4. But Judas had a problem. Judas had a problem because there was something else going on in his life. And he couldn't be a real servant. He couldn't be trained into real service because he had a problem. His problem was he was too materialistic. Remember what they said about it when the woman came and at a dinner and had brought expensive ointment. In fact, the scholars say it was ointment that was so expensive it was a 1 year's wages. And she took that and poured it on his head, on his feet, and began to dry them with her hair. And Judas stepped up and said, wait a minute, what are you doing? I mean, we could take that money that cost, that was spent, and we could give it to the poor, as though that was some great magnanimous thing that Judas was saying. But then the text says he liked to carry the money, and he stole from the money that the group was given to support themselves while they were walking around preaching and teaching. Judas could not learn real service because he was too materialistic. I think sometimes people can't be servants because they're already being served by their stuff. And so he threw in the towel. He betrayed Jesus, and then he killed himself. Philip Morrison wrote a book many years ago called Who Moved the Stone? Great little bitty book. And about the resurrection. And he surmises the possibility that Judas had bought into what Acts 1 says about the disciples when Jesus was about to be ascended. Will you now restore the kingdom to Israel? That they were thinking about an earthly kingdom. And he surmised the possibility that Judas Iscariot looked at the situation and said, I've been with him for 3 years and he's not doing anything to start a revolt over the Romans. So if I betray him, I know he has an army up in heaven who's going to come fight. And if I betray him and deliver him over, they'll go ahead and start the war. But when Jesus did not respond that way, when he said, I could call 10,000 angels, but he didn't. Judas then goes, uh-oh, I was wrong. And so he threw the towel in and he quit. If you've ever tried to serve somebody and they laugh at you or spit in your face or reject you or are not kind or don't say thank you, don't throw in the towel. Don't quit. Don't stop. Just keep serving. Number 2, you can use the towel to towel off. Well, I know some preachers that while they preach, they're doing this all the time, constantly. Well, that's what John Thompson was doing. He'd have it right there and he'd take it, he'd wipe, all the time. I feel sorry if people sweat that bad. It doesn't get me. But I know what they're doing. They're toweling off. You can be like Peter, and you can towel off. Peter failed. Man, he failed. When he failed, he didn't throw in the towel. He picked it up and toweled off himself. Think about Peter for just a minute. In John 13, Jesus came to him and he said, you're not going to wash my feet. Jesus said, okay, fine. But if I don't wash your feet, you have nothing to do with me. Okay, wash my whole body then. That's one of the best ways to describe Peter. That one event. I mean, everything Peter did was mountain or valley. Think about it. When he was walking on the water, mountain. Quit looking at Jesus and saw the water, valley, went into the water. I mean, that's Peter. That's the kind of guy he was. When it came to the garden, the soldiers came to arrest Jesus. What did Peter do? He pulled out his sword. He's ready to fight. Jesus said, put it away. Put it away. But when he came to the courtyard, he was too timid to say, yes, I know him. In that courtyard, 3 times, Peter, in a private scenario, basically said, I don't know the guy, and he cussed a little bit, it sounds like. Remember when Jesus finally was about to be ascended, he's with his disciples, and he said to Peter, do you love me? Oh, yeah, Lord, I love you. Peter, do you love me? Well, yes, Lord, I love you. Peter, do you love me? I said, I love you. Peter denied him 3 times. Jesus gave him 3 opportunities to say, I love you. He canceled out each denial with each statement of love. Jesus was helping him. And this guy who denied Jesus right there in private, in Acts chapter 2, stood up and announced his conviction to thousands of people. You know why? Because he was willing to towel off. There's not a one of us that's free of guilt. Not a one of us that's free of trouble. Not a one of us who doesn't carry around baggage. But every one of us can be just like Peter. And we can towel off. The final is, these are the marching orders for you and me. Let's pick up the towel. Let's take it up. Just like those first century Christians. They picked up the towel in spite of the few numbers of people they had. Have you noticed or thought about the comparison between Jesus' entire ministry? Multitudes were following him. fact, there were so many, they drove them off of the land and into a boat because they were just trying to get close to him. Acts 1 verse 15. Now the number of the disciples in those days, this is just 50 days. 50 days after he was crucified. The number of the disciples, 120. Where had the multitudes gone? They could have been discouraged. We used to be a big crowd. And everybody's gone. Maybe we should go too. No, they took up the towel. They stayed together because they needed to be together. They're the only ones left that were willing to stand for the Lord that they thought they had lost. And 3,000 eventually. And then multitudes and multitudes and multitudes started coming back. Because they didn't mind the numbers. They took up the towel because they didn't mind that the authorities said in Acts 4 and in Acts 5, stop preaching Jesus. They took up the towel and preached him anyway. And they didn't mind in Acts 8. When Saul started the whole bit of persecuting Christians so badly that he drove them out of the city, they picked up the towel, verse 4, and the Bible said, and they went everywhere preaching the gospel. The persecution did not stop the spread. It caused the spread of Christianity. You know why? Because they did not throw in the towel. In fact, they toweled off with their own guilt. And they took up the towel and said, we will serve. So, Christian, put a smile on your face, or at least put a smile in your heart, and carry the joy of Jesus. And every time we have an opportunity to serve, remember the towel. If you need people to pray and help you tonight, if you need this church to stand with you for something, a miss in your life, or even if we had someone respond once that said, I just want to let everybody know that the prayers have worked and good things are happening in my life. You know, if you need to say something like that, that'd be fine too. But certainly we're here to help as we stand and sing.
I have decided